Welcome, everyone. We are so glad that you're able to join us for this special, at least in the Pacific time zone, lunchtime presentation. So definitely glad that you can spend a little bit of your afternoon with us. My name is Amy Evans, and I am a program coordinator with the Institute for Health Professionals. And I'm really honored to have KP Khalsa here with us today. We are going to be talking about he's going to be talking a lot about adrenal fatigue and all kinds of background and options for supporting our bodies and working with that. And then we will also be diving into how you can continue to learn from KP and the amazing knowledge of in the world of herbal medicine that he brings with him. The PCC, or Portland Community College, Herbalism program will be launching later this month, and KP is the exclusive instructor in that program. So we are going to dive in and get started. As I mentioned, my name is Amy Evans. I coordinate several programs with the Institute for Health Professionals, which is a very small department within the larger Portland Community College setting, but we create a lot of really high caliber programs. I coordinate a lot within the functional nutrition and integrative healthcare world, as well as mental and behavioral health classes and clinical research programs. I have a background in community health education, in massage therapy, a real passion for integrative healthcare, and I've also done a lot of work in workforce development. So I really appreciate the opportunity to help professionals gain new skills and grow in their ability to work with clients, as well as supporting people who are curious or interested in learning more and gaining some new skills and knowledge to be able to embrace those opportunities. KP, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'll just briefly tell you I'm the instructor of this course today, Adrenal Fatigue. I'll tell you a little bit more about my background in a moment.
Great. So just a few standard Zoom etiquettes. First of all, just as a reminder, this session is being recorded. I will send out a copy of the recording to everyone who is registered for this webinar, so that if you want to revisit any of the content that is covered, you will be able to do that. We will have some Q&A at the end, and during that time especially, we invite you to turn on your video so that you can ask your question live. During the rest of the webinar, it's encouraged. It's always nice to be able to speak to an audience with faces out there, but we know that people may not be in a position to do so, and so it's perfectly fine to keep that off. We do ask that you keep your microphones muted throughout the entire session, except for when you can raise your hand to ask some questions and things, but we want to make sure that we're not picking up any background noise so that everyone can hear KP with his presentation and things. Questions are welcome throughout the webinar. KP will conduct most of the adrenal fatigue knowledge, sharing that in a larger segment, but if you would like to add some questions to the chat, he will field those as possible, and then I will make sure we revisit anything that's captured in the chat at the end, and then if I can answer some of the questions as well throughout as we go, I will do that. And that's pretty much the schedule for the webinar for you. So go ahead to the next slide. So as I mentioned, I work for the Institute for Health Professionals, which is housed at Portland Community College in Portland, Oregon. I've referenced that we have several integrated healthcare programs, all of which prepare people for national certification. The Herbalism program is no exception there. We also have an Ayurveda yoga teacher training program, an advanced yoga teacher training, both of those that very closely merge those sister sciences of yoga and Ayurvedic medicine, and dovetail really nicely into herbalism. We often have students complete both of those programs and be able to support folks as they go. We have functional nutrition and of course our herbal medicine program. Other programs that are offered there are all of the series of American Heart Association classes and the renewals. We have dental assisting, a lot of entry-level healthcare training, such as phlebotomy, pharmacy technician, and we also have a suite of mental and behavioral health classes. Some of those are short, brief classes for license renewals, and others are really helping people explore in depth in some really cutting edge areas such as interpersonal neurobiology and things. So if you are curious to continue expanding your knowledge, please reach out to me or look at our website and find quite a suite of opportunities. Go to the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to take over at this point. Thanks so much, Amy. We'll talk about adrenal fatigue today. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. I'm watching that to the extent that I can. I may not see all of them or be able to get to them, but we will have time at the end. All right, so you know that this is me. I've been in the health field for 50 years, integrative sorts of things. So I'm an Ayurvedic doctor. You know that I'm an herbalist, dietitian, nutritionist, and massage therapist, and I have credentials in all those fields. I am the national president emeritus of the American Herbalist Guild, the professional association for practicing clinical herbalists in North America. I'm the director emeritus of the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. I teach in the Ayurvedic Sciences Department, the Botanical Medicine Department, and manage the Ayurvedic Certificate Department of Bastyr University in Seattle. And I also teach at the National University of Natural Medicine in Portland, two similar institutions of natural medicine. I'm a professor of neurology at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy and Health Sciences, and I'm an educator across the board, generally speaking. I was the senior research scientist and medical formulator for Yogi Tea, a brand that many of you know, I think, for 30 years. All right, so let's dive into Ayurveda, or into adrenal fatigue. All right, so some of these slides are a little bit text heavy, so I'm going to either just let you marinate the slide for a moment or summarize them, and you can go back to the recording for more if you want. So adrenal fatigue, the term was coined in 1998, and some healthcare practitioners use it, mostly those in the natural healing space, like we're talking about now. A bunch of symptoms: fatigue, general complaints that mimic the signs of other adrenal diseases, various syndromes, and medical conditions. There is no specific definition for Ayurveda for adrenal fatigue, and the whole definition is a little bit slippery. So James Wilson was the guy who coined this, and it was a collection of mostly non-specific symptoms. There are no blood tests or lab tests of any kind to distinguish adrenal fatigue from any of these other diseases. Sometimes it's called hypoadrenia. But anyway, the idea is that the adrenal glands are exhausted, unable to produce adequate hormones, mainly cortisol, because of chronic stress and infections. Adrenal fatigue, again, is defined by some of these kinds of ideas. So it's a legitimate idea, the idea that people have something going on with their adrenal glands, and that they're feeling these symptoms like fatigue or fuzzy-headed thinking, that kind of thing, a lack of resistance to allergies and infection. But it's not an actual medical diagnosis. It's not really a disease in and of itself. We'll dive into that more here in just a moment. But one of the ways that this is defined is fluctuations in cortisol. So cortisol goes up and down. We don't have time to get into all of that today, but bottom line, there's some kind of cortisol imbalance, and that then is either causes or is caused by stress, sugar cravings, weight gain, all these kinds of things that we see here. So no actual real definition. I don't use this term in actual practice because it means nothing, but I understand that many other people are using that term, and we'll get into some discussion today about what this means and what you could do for it. So it's a consensus among mainstream endocrinologists that it is a myth. So if you go to your conventional medical doctor, your PCP, or an endocrinologist, they'll say that there is no such thing. although again, many naturopathic physicians and holistic practitioners would use this term. Anyway, because we don't have a standardized language for this, and we could have terms used such as burnout or burnout syndrome, things like that. It's a big mushy ball of lack of definition. So the people that do use this term, we see these kinds of things that are associated. I'll let you just marinate this for a second. So as you can see, this is a whole lot of everything. So some people sometimes call this subclinical everything syndrome or something like that. It's a subclinical condition where you don't have any measurable or observable actual adrenal diseases, but you don't feel very well. The symptoms do overlap with many other conditions, and some of those other conditions might be other sort of flimsy diagnoses like this. Fibromyalgia, although that is an actual diagnosable disease, is very slippery to pin down. Likewise, chronic fatigue, basically the same disease as fibromyalgia, depression, sleep apnea, so many things associated with this. So the idea is that some kind of chronic physical or psychological stress creates this demand on the adrenals. They're unable to keep up, and they gradually conk out. So subclinical means it's not severe enough to be detectable today by current means. It's only based on symptoms. So the high burden on the adrenal glands produces high levels of hormones like cortisol long-term, and then chronically low levels later. The adrenal glands just can't keep up with the patient's constant state of stress. So subclinical everything syndrome, there's a bunch of variations of this idea, but it's basically the typical modern person. I might say the typical modern North American, but it's really not regional. I mean, you could live in London or Mumbai or Tokyo and have similar kinds of things. It's caused by the lifestyle of modern people in industrialized countries, eating a nutritionally insufficient diet, constant stress, not getting enough sleep, all those kinds of things. So conventional adrenal conditions might also be in there, diseases like Addison's disease, but those are going to need a medical diagnosis, and then they might be addressed conventionally or with alternative methods. Okay, so your adrenal glands are two little pyramid-shaped glands that sit on top of your kidneys. That's what the name means. Adrenal, renal is kidney, and ad means on top. So the glands that sit on top of your kidneys, they have nothing to do with your kidneys, however. They're just glued there for the body's own purposes for whatever reason, but they produce various hormones. They're about the size of the end joint of your thumb, something like that. Not very big, but they're small but mighty. There are two glands in one. The outside is called the cortex. Cortex means bark or skin, or outside, it's something like that. And that produces steroid hormones like cortisol. And then the medulla, which is the core, the middle part, produces other types of hormones that mainly have to do with stimulating the body in some way. So they're really two separate glands completely. They do absolutely different kinds of things, different kinds of hormones. They somehow, in human physiology, they ended up being glued together. The things that they produce have effects on the entire body. They're messenger molecules that tell other tissues what to do, and mainly they talk to the rest of the body about responses to stress, that kind of thing. So we can see the cortex on the outside, the medulla in the middle. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that today for the sake of time. The bottom line, though, is that the endocrine system is a network. I like to refer to it as the endocrine symphony, and it's a symphony with no conductor. So if you go to a conventional endocrinologist or any other doctor that focuses on any one of these glands, you might get a diagnosis of a thyroid issue, an ovary or testicular issue, the adrenal issue, of course, we talked about. Just depends on which doctor you see at what time and what measurements they take to name the diagnosis. But bottom line, the endocrine system has constant positive feedback and constant negative feedback with all of the other glands and with the brain. So they're all telling each other what to do, but there's a lack of resource for all of them to be able to do that. So it's like a symphony without a conductor. They're all trying to do their job, and sometimes they can do it relatively well for a few hours or a few days, and then the other ones are screaming at them, hey, thyroid, do your job. No, pituitary, it's your problem. No, adrenal glands, you do your job. So for a lack of resources and connection and a properly functioning network, the whole thing isn't functioning very well. The endocrine system is a system of hormones, messenger molecules that regulates how fast your metabolism is running, circulation to all of your body, brain functions, all of your senses, how rapidly you digest food, just everything literally in the body is being regulated by these things, including the adrenal glands, but not specifically the adrenal glands. So I like to think of adrenal fatigue as subclinical endocrine dysregulation, really. So some tests that we might look at, cortisol test. So this is something that you can order online, or you can have this done by maybe a naturopathic physician, something like that. Most conventional medical doctors don't believe in this and won't give you this test. But anyway, cortisol affects pretty much every organ in your body, regulating blood sugar, blood pressure, all those things I talked about, and that can be tested. They'll want to know what time of the day your blood was drawn, because cortisol is high or low at different times in various ways. And that can tell you whether or not the adrenal glands are producing enough cortisol. So that can be a urine or a saliva test or a blood test. And you're going to collect your urine for a 24-hour period if you use the urine test. You can go to any private pay lab. There should be one easily available, and ask them for a 24-hour urine sample test. You save all your urine for 24 hours, you give it back to them, and they do an analysis and that gives you an idea what's going on. Another one that might be useful is the DHEA sulfate serum test. This is a blood test. Again, this could be delivered by any private pay lab that's available. If your medical doctor will do it, great, or maybe again, a natural healing practitioner of some kind. So DHEA is a hormone that's the mother hormone to all the sex hormones in the body. So it's produced, and then from that are made testosterone, all the other androgens, all the estrogens, estriol, estradiol, etc. DHEA is produced in both men and women, and it contributes mainly to male traits, but everyone needs some. All of these hormones are produced in men and women. All the hormones of the adrenal gland is just slightly different in terms of proportion. So these can be some of the symptoms of DHEA deficiency, again, produced by the adrenal glands. So again, we're back to fatigue, lack of concentration, and just not feeling good overall, a general malaise. And then we measure the DHEA. If we find out that there's a problem there, we can use that as a supplement. All right, so with that background, let's spend most of our time talking about some remedies here today. So here's DHEA, and that is available as a dietary supplement. We have this weird situation in the United States where some hormones are available as dietary supplements and others are not. So you can't get thyroxine at the health food store, but you can get DHEA, another very powerful hormone. You can't get testosterone, but you can get progesterone and estrogen at the health food store. Whether that's a good situation is kind of depends on your perspective. I mean, I like the fact that some of these things are easily available so that I can use them in my practice and advise people about whether or not to take them. But it is a little strange that these powerful hormones are available for anybody to just buy in the health food store. Nonetheless, it is available, and you could use just a personal clinical challenge for DHEA and start with a low dose and find out if you feel better. It is then converted into all these various hormones, and so it's a good thing to try as a first basic step. So probably you want to start with about 10 milligrams of DHEA and maybe take that for a couple of weeks and gradually increase in, let's say, 10 milligram units, increasing every couple of weeks. And if you find that once you get up to some dose that's feelable, if you're having an improvement in your concentration, your sexual function, your feeling of malaise, your daily energy, all of that, you can bump the dose up slowly until you get to a dose that feels the best and you don't have any uncomfortable side effects from that. An uncomfortable side effect would usually be just feeling over energized. So your body does produce this hormone in the adrenal gland, but also in the gonads. So ovaries or testicles, depending on what you have. And then it produces these other hormones we talked about. So we think, according to modern conventional ideas, that DHEA levels peak in early adulthood and then slowly fall as you age. That's typical. Whether or not that's normal, we haven't really quite figured out yet. Is that just because everybody is eating an insufficient diet and has too much stress, or is it just the natural course of being a human being? But anyway, it's available. You can try it. It typically does produce some nice effects and easily available. So suboptimal levels of DHEA, remember it's produced by the adrenal glands, can cause many of these kinds of things. Some of these are usually not associated with adrenal fatigue per se, rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, but in fact, rheumatoid arthritis is an inflammatory disorder, and our body is basically set to have inflammation as the default, and then your body produces anti-inflammatory hormones like cortisol to control that. So in fact, inflammation all over the body may have increased resulting from stress and such things, but lack of cortisol. So a bunch of things that can be associated with that there. All right, let's talk about reishi mushroom. This is a medicinal mushroom. It's not edible. You can make tea out of it and drink that tea, but you can't actually chew on the mature mushroom. By the time that it matures and becomes medicinal, it's hard like wood. In Chinese medicine, it's known as the mushroom of spiritual potency and medical wonder. It just treats everything, fantastic tonic across the board. It does grow wild, but today it's grown in cultivation kind of situations. And then you can buy it this way if you like, or you can buy various other prepared products. Reishi is the Japanese name for this product, although it's mainly associated with Chinese medicine. So the Shaolin monks, those guys that developed Kung Fu, are the ones that really put this on the map, and they liked it because it enhanced their meditation, but because they were also martial artists, it enhanced their stamina, muscular strength, coordination, and all of that. So it just does a plethora of great things, largely through, again, the endocrine system. So antioxidant properties, enhance immune response, helps prevent cancer, immune system becomes more active. So immune response, so many things. It improves sleep. Now, this is a slow acting remedy, so you're not going to feel it day to day when you first start. So you have to experiment with the dose and find out which dose over time with slow adjustment gives you all these results that you're looking for. Improving sleep, immune function, enhancing muscular stamina, all those sorts of things. And it reduces stress. Now, it doesn't reduce the stressful events in your life. It reduces your response to those stresses, the negative response, where you can't shut off your mind, or you're having trouble sleeping, or all the kinds of things we talked about that we defined as adrenal fatigue. So reishi is available in various supplemental forms. This is a good brand, Host Defense. Now, usually they don't grow this reishi anymore like a mushroom on a piece of wood. Usually they grow it in a tank. And the part that's used is the mycelium, or that sort of spider web of little fibrous kinds of things that are underground that make up most of the body of a mushroom. And so it's much cheaper to do it that way, but it works pretty well. So here you see it supports a healthy heart, so many kinds of ideas. So you can either buy the whole woody type mushroom and chop it up and make tea out of it, or you can buy a more sophisticated kind of extract like this made in a tank. They both work pretty well. Cordyceps is a very strange medicine, again, a fungus, not a mushroom exactly, but it's a medicine where a particular type of fungus has taken over the body of a hibernating caterpillar. Very weird. You can see that these look just like dead caterpillars, but in fact, they're fungus. So these caterpillars, they live all over the world, really, but the main ones are from Tibet and more highland kinds of areas in China. And the caterpillars spend the winter underground, and they go through their metamorphosis, turning into a moth. But the soil is infected with these fungus spores, and so they get into the mushroom and start to eat it, and they turn the entire mushroom, the entire caterpillar, into something like a mushroom, fungus type material. And you can see that they exactly replicate what the caterpillar would look like. Now, people harvest these by getting down on their hands and knees and going through the grass, literally inch by inch, and then dig them up with a trowel. So it's tremendously labor intensive to produce this natural form here. And again, they're quite expensive for that reason. So the hibernating caterpillar during the winter, and they're very dramatic for increasing stamina. So in the same kind of general category as the reishi, they are another type of fungus, but usually these are feelable a little faster. So you gradually increase the dose and you begin to feel an increase in energy and all those things we talked about a little faster. So here we see one. That little stem on the end is a part of the fungus that it shoots up during the spring. And it's part of its life cycle is to do that. And that's what the harvesters see when they're snooping through the grass, as these little stems, and then they dig out the caterpillar that's now been turned to fungus. Definitely a weird idea, but it's some combination of the chemicals that were originally in the caterpillar and the chemicals that the fungus brought to that. Those two things together somehow produce this increase in stamina and that sort of thing. So look at all the things that it does. Pretty amazing. Now, cordyceps is also now grown in a tank, and we use the mycelium, which is much less expensive. So the original cordyceps was so expensive that it's unaffordable for almost everybody, but the new versions work very well, and they're quite easily available. So athletic stamina, it improved the performance of long distance runners. You know, if we go back before about, 10, 15 years ago, in the track and field area of the Olympics, that kind of thing, the Chinese teams were never thought of as being any kind of a world power. And then all of a sudden, they showed up one year and started winning medals like crazy. And reporters were asking the coaches, what was the difference? Why were they so good all of a sudden like that? And the coach said, because they began using cordyceps and it made all the difference. So pretty dramatic. That's how it became known on the world scene. Of course, in Chinese medicine, it's been known forever. So this is how they hibernate and get infected by the fungus. The Chinese name means winter worm summer grass, because that looks like a little grass stem coming up. And of course, in the winter, it was a worm that got infected. So these are just other varieties of the similar kind of thing. You probably don't want to buy this original cordyceps. It's still available, and it created just a tremendous gold rush in the alpine areas of Nepal, Tibet, that kind of area where these things grow, because it was so expensive and the world had tuned into it and wanted to buy it. And so families would go up there and camp all spring and hunt on their hands and knees for cordyceps every day, and people bought new motorcycles and new house and new clothes for their kids and all of that. They became instant millionaires, basically, or instant rich people. So here's an example of a good brand, New Chapter, that's making cordyceps. Now this is a liquid extract concentrate, but you can see that it's a concentrate of the mycelium. In other words, that net of things that grow underground, and they grow that in a tank. And that works perfectly well. So either of these kinds of forms could be pretty good. Now here we have another brand that is the powder of an extract. So probably, I don't have the details about this particular product, but probably it was grown in a tank and then the extract was dried and made into a powder, and this then is available. So you start with a small amount. You could start with the amount on the label and then gradually increase any of these fungus products until you began to feel that increase in stamina. And they do have a notable effect on the adrenal glands and the whole endocrine symphony over time. Rhodiola is this is an herb now in this case, the plant that grows in high alpine kinds of areas. A lot of good science on this one. There's a lot of good science on reishi and cordyceps too, but this one is relatively recent in terms of our awareness of it in the world scene. But there's been some pretty good science since. Most of the science comes out of Scandinavia. So if you search for scientific papers on rhodiola, you're going to find a lot of validating information. So in the areas where it grows, it's been traditionally used for fatigue and energy, the kinds of things we're talking about. So this is another slow acting tonic. It's the root that we use, and you could gradually work your way into the doses of these roots of the rhodiola to give you the kind of effect that you want. So here's the scientific name. In English, it's often called Arctic root. Again, it grows in these high altitude, cold kinds of climates, as so many of these tonics do. So it's available in many different forms. You can buy the bulk root that's just been dried and chopped like this. It's available as powder, various kinds of extracts in pills and such, and they all work pretty well. You could try any kind like that. So again, it's working on the adrenals, or at least what we think of as adrenal fatigue, or what I'm calling the endocrine systematic subclinical dysregulation. So stress, anxiety, and fatigue for sure. So it has the advantage over other tonics like ginseng in that it promotes relaxation. Most of the other tonics are more stimulating. So if you look at things like ginseng or other things in that tonic category, they help people get their energy back, but they tend to be a little on the stimulating side. So this one is nice in that it alleviates anxiety, promotes relaxation, and helps people with their stress and anxiety all at the same time. So a little bit more kind of soothing, yet stamina enhancing kind of remedy. I use this a lot in practice. It works really well for people. It's widely available. So we do know from the science that even a single dose before a stressful event will prevent the disruptions in performance that people have, whether it's performance in a meeting at your job or running a race in an athletic competition. So pretty good results with long-term use. If used for years, it can help manage stress. Good for depression, fewer side effects than antidepressants, according to a study here going all the way back to 2015 in phytomedicine. I've given you the reference if you're interested in looking that up and reading about rhodiola. So here's a brand that has a rhodiola formula that is a standardized extract. And so they have extracted the active constituents, which are thought to be rosavin in this particular case, and concentrated it into a pill. You could try that. That tends to work pretty well. So increasing stamina, immune function, depression, all of like that without being overly stimulating. Here's another brand. Now, in this particular case, they standardize it to some other things, but the same kind of idea. So here's a dose of this particular kind of product, maybe 100 to 300 milligrams 3 times a day. So I have a really good I've had really good experience with rhodiola. Eleuthero is the ultimate tonic herb, and this is the herb for which the term adaptogen was originally created. Now, adaptogen is a term that a lot of you have heard, I think, and probably it's the most misunderstood word in the herbal area. And so let's just call Eleuthero, which is an adaptogen, but let's just call it a nutritive tonic, something like that. Many herbs now are being called adaptogens that are not and don't meet the criteria for adaptogen, but this was the first one that was called an adaptogen. So we are supposed to call this Eleuthero now, at least in the United States. The false common name is Siberian ginseng. It does grow in Siberia, but it is not ginseng. So people call it that. We're not allowed to call it that commercially in the United States now. So this can be used by either gender, men or women. None of the things we've talked about so far are gender specific. Eleuthero is relatively slow acting. So you take maybe a couple grams per day after puberty, and you take that dose every single day forever. Now, if you wanted to take a larger dose short term to help this adrenal fatigue kind of idea, then you could use a higher dose. You get up around maybe 10 grams, something like that, and people start to feel kind of overly stimulated. So it's used as a long-term daily tonifying remedy for people, as an anti-aging and immune enhancing remedy at a couple grams per day. It's the bark that we use, the bark of the root. And so it will either be called root or bark of root, something like that. It's all the same thing. So it is an adaptogen for sure, just meaning that it helps you adapt to stress. So it's a tonic that supports fatigue, but then immune, we have some good science on it as being antiviral, lowering blood sugar, treating blood sugar kinds of disorders. All good news. Here's another one that you might consider from Chinese medicine, 6-flavor tea pills. And this is probably the most widely used herb in all of Chinese medicine. It should be quite available to you. We see the English name on this particular bottle, and then we see the Chinese name down below. So it has some Chinese vocabulary here, which if you know that, you can understand what that is. But it has a wide-ranging effect from energy deficiencies. So it's the basis for many other Chinese herbal formulas. But many people, when they begin to take this, feel all the kinds of things that we've just talked about for all those other things. Treats depression, anxiety, increases stamina, all those kinds of things. So it treats the kidney in the sense that in Chinese medicine, kidney really means adrenal gland most of the time, and it enhances kidney function, which is basically stamina, boosts immunity, works on urinary function, which is the water management aspect of the kidney. So all the other kinds of things that you see here. And the dose of this can be very, very high. It's very well tolerated. So you could start at, let's say, 1 gram a day in pill form, and then work your way up, increasing by, let's say, 1 gram every day or two, until you got to the dose that gave you the best effect. So in particular, these are the kinds of symptoms that people do well when they take the 6-flavor tea pills. These are the ingredients. These are the kinds of things we talk about in the herb course. All right. So those are a bunch of things that, there we go. That's not what I wanted. All right. The kinds of things that you could use for adrenal fatigue, or whatever we want to call it, chronic endocrine system dysregulation. What we have in our culture now in the herb world is lots of products. As herbal medicine began to get rejuvenated from these 70-year hiatus that we have, where no one was using natural medicine, and I was part of this renaissance starting about 50 years ago, what we decided to do as a culture was to make a whole bunch of products and sell a bunch of things to people, which is, commonly the way we do things. So we have an unending array of products that are almost impossible for anybody to figure out. So you go to the health food store and you see miles of shelves and a bunch of claims, but which one is right for you? So lots of products, but not very much professionalism or actually herbalism. What we failed to do was actually train herbalists. We are training them now, and of course, Amy mentioned the PCC program, and that's the idea here, is to actually get people educated about how to use these kinds of things. So herbal therapy is different than drug therapy. It's not isolated substances. Any given herb typically has about 10,000 different constituents, and maybe of that 100 are active and maybe 10 are especially active, something like that. It's largely non-toxic pharmacology. So it's pharmacology using substances that don't have side effects of drugs, but have a broad spectrum of action because of this combination of constituents. So herbs definitely are not drugs. Many of them can work in a sort of, if I could say it this way, drug-like way, like we just talked about, things to support the adrenal gland and the endocrine system, but they don't have the side effects or dangers of drugs. So drugs are one isolated chemical. Drugs used to all come from plants. Now, for the last, let's say, 20 years, they're all made on computer modeling, and they're all synthetic. So that era is over. But these drugs overwhelm 1 biological pathway in the body and then create side effects. Herbs are much less likely to do that. So thousands of chemicals, and they have this very broad action. So the active constituents in herbs are all natural. Now, humans have been eating plants since the beginning of their being humans. And so plants only make a certain number of different kinds of compounds. They make thousands of them, but they pretty much, our body has seen all these things before, not from a specific plant necessarily, but similar constituents from our food and medicines that people have used since, you know, the dawn of humanity. So our bodies are used to seeing these things, and they're natural, and the body knows how to deal with those things. So much less likelihood of a side effect. So most herbs are not just drug delivery systems. Many people in conventional medicine think of herbal medicine as a way to deliver a specific constituent to have a particular effect. But in fact, most of them are not drug delivery systems. They're a combination of all these things that work together to get the results that we want. So when we're looking at using herbs for things like adrenal fatigue or anything else, the key issues are the ones that we see here. Because we don't have any cultural experience with using herbal medicine, or at least we have very little, it's just beginning. Nobody knows the answer to any of these things, and most people don't have success with herbal medicine. They listen to somebody in the health food store, they try something, it either works or it doesn't. Usually it doesn't, and then they give up on it and go to something else. But I'm here to tell you that herbal medicine works dramatically, effectively, and the issue is all these kinds of things here. So we have to either consult someone who's studied these things or learn to do those things for ourselves. So we could assess herbs by their body systems, things like respiratory or immune. We could learn herbs that were good for various of our body systems. That would be one approach. We also need to have the right herb for the individual, because there are thousands of herbs from around the world, all available to us now, that would be good for, let's say, lung function. Then we have to narrow it down to the right herb for the individual. So here's a Chinese aphorism about that whole idea. Different diseases, same treatment, same disease, different treatments. So yes, there's going to be some similarity to people with people that all have, let's say, the flu, but they're going to get different treatments because they're different people, different age, different ethnicity, different tolerance, different state of the disease, all of that. There's going to be some overall similarity to those treatments, but they're going to be individualized for the person. That's when they work very, very well. Someone is asking, can someone with fungal nails take reishi? Doesn't exasperate their fungal issue. That's correct. You can take that. That's a common misunderstanding that you're going to run into on the internet, is that when you have some kind of a fungal illness, whether it's yeast in the gut or fungal nails, that you shouldn't take any herb that is or medicine that is a fungus. That's not true. That doesn't appear anywhere in any traditional herbal system. That's something that people sort of made up out of nowhere over the last, I don't know, 30 years maybe. And now it's been repeated so many times that it seems like it's true, but there's no validation. Michelle is asking if we can have this presentation. And yes, this is being recorded and will be available to you. College information similar or transferable to Canada? Well, herbal medicine is not recognized as a healing modality or a state authorized treatment anywhere. This particular program that we're about to talk about is organized according to the principles of the American Herbalist Guild, and we expect that people that take this course can sit for that exam and get that credential. It's not obligatory. Taking cow adrenal to enhance a human's adrenal. Yeah, I used to use a lot of those dried glandulars that came from animals. Going way back 50 years ago, was pretty much all we had, and they worked to a certain extent. But as other things became more available, I found myself just not using them gradually, and now I don't use them at all. Not because there's something bad about them, but just because we have other better choices now. The right herb quality we need to be aware of. Now, the person in the health food store wants to sell you something. All right. So this professional healthcare training is available, and I'll talk a little bit about this, and then Amy could talk about this a little more. So this is for all kinds of people. Maybe someone who's looking to develop a career. We've trained many people, especially if you continue the entire program to the point where then you qualify for that credential from the American Herbalist Guild. That's even more of an advantage for you. So established professionals, people who are in other alternative health fields, or maybe even a dentist or massage therapist, or all kinds of people we've had in these courses. You might be just starting a career, then this is for you. Many people, I'd say half, take a course like this just to work on their own personal health. So they know what they're doing and they don't have to listen to that person in the health food store. So a lot of people want to know about how to support their family. This is the kind of thing that would benefit that as well. All right, so I am your instructor, as Amy was mentioning. The course, as I've mentioned a couple times, is based on the standards of the American Herbalist Guild to allow you to then apply for this credential, which is registered herbalist. That's the credential that I hold through this organization. This course is actually the first year of a 2.5-year sequence of courses that you will need to be able to get this credential. So many people take this first year and are satisfied with that. We give you a certificate, and many people have been successful in practicing or working with their family or whatever with that first year. PCC offers that first year, and then you'd have to go on to the second and third years in another location. So 1 evening per week, 3 hours over the course of the term. 3 terms in any order gets you that certificate from PCC. Okay, Amy, I will remove myself here and you can put up your version.
Sounds great. Thank you, KP, for all of that wonderful information. Very informative. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we will dive into a few more of the program details that KP was already sharing a little bit with you. As you can see, the instructors in all of our program are credentialed and very specialized practitioners. In the Herbalism Professionals program, you have been with one of the best, so you already know the extensive background and knowledge that KP comes and is really happy to share with everyone in depth. He can answer so many questions and speak to so many different aspects of herbal medicine. The program has always been open to a variety of students and professionals. We have had cohorts, and this is not a cohort-based program, but we've had classes where we have a number of students who are professionals looking to expand their knowledge and gain some experience and in herbal medicine. We've also had students that are really, as KP mentioned, just looking to gain some knowledge for themselves, to support their friends and family, or are curious to know more and see if this might be a good career move for them. So some people that are really wanting to focus entirely on herbs or have that be a very large focus of their career trajectory, and others who are wanting to supplement with that or add a little more to that. So all goals and interests are welcome here. And Mandy, if you mind putting your question in the chat, we'll come back to that at the end there. Thank you. I do see your hand raised and happy to have you ask that. One of the benefits of being a PCC student is that you have access to all of the PCC resources and services. So there is an IT support team, there is a student help desk for the online learning platforms. We have disability services for people that are needing some additional support in that regard. And we also have career services. So people that are looking to refine and have some information on their, in writing their resume or wanting to do informational interviews and things like that. We've got lots of support there. And again, this program, like many of ours, prepares you towards that national certification. We'll touch base on that a little bit more later on. All of our instruction in the program is delivered through Zoom, just like this. So you get that live instruction, some mentoring, and question and answer opportunities throughout each session. The sessions are recorded. We've had some students that complete the entire program via recordings because the timing just doesn't work well for them. But we always encourage live participation whenever possible, and we've found that that is really helpful, and because of that we offer a couple of different options in this program and class, and those recordings are available for you throughout the duration of the term. We have other optional resources. KP has put together quite a few options. Some students really prioritize their time in this program and want to explore those additional resources during the program. Others focus on all that is being presented and learned during that program, and then retain some of those optional resources to explore afterwards, sometimes forming study groups and really giving a chance to explore a lot. And being part of a college, we are pleased to be able to offer some payment plan options as well. And we have a question in there about the course continuing online after this term. Yes, this program has always been an online program, so we are committed to continuing that, making sure that it's available and accessible to all. We've had international students, and we really are glad to be able to do that. What was that, KP?
Wasn't me.
Oh, okay, sorry. And so, why study herbalism? Well, KP covered a lot of that, but as you can read on the slide, this really is a growing field. More and more people are getting interested in alternative healthcare, integrated health services, and just wanting a lot of that knowledge to be able to take care of themselves and find healthier, more holistic options in supporting themselves and their loved ones. There really are a wide variety of professional roles that can be grown from this knowledge, and people that are adding it to what they do. As we already mentioned, it's portable. You can use this all in many settings all around the world, and between different states and countries. Really offers a lot for diverse backgrounds and a lot of different income opportunities within that. And we also anticipate more and more credentialing coming down the pike in future years. And so that opportunity to get in early and be grandfathered in with some of this knowledge and credentialing can also make a real difference in your future plans and expenses around licensing or that credentialing and things. So let's see, is herbalism right for you? So KP can expand a little bit on this, but really we find a lot of the people that are attracted to this field and that thrive in there are healing oriented. They have a curiosity and an interest in how and what can help people get better, what's contributing to some of the ailments and chronic and acute conditions alike. They enjoy working with people and with clients. In other instances, people like to learn about herbalism because they actually want to work more with the plants and with creating some of those formulas. So it doesn't have to be a people-centered, but many people are attracted to that for that opportunity to support those in their lives. They're looking for some challenges. There's so much to learn and always grow in there that really does present some online learning and growth that many people find very fulfilling. Herbalism is very clearly connected to nature and steeped in many rich traditions. In this program, we we'll talk a little bit more, but we cover Ayurveda, Chinese, and Western herbs in particular. But many programs or many herbal traditions exist around the world. And so once you have some grounding in some of these, you can go and continue to explore other options as well. And that we really do keep current with the science, and KP can speak to a lot of the latest research and blend that traditional knowledge with modern approaches. KP, do you have anything to add to this slide?
Yeah, sure. So people have taken this course and gone in every direction you could imagine. Q&A, not Q&A, QA, quality assurance for various kinds of companies, import, export, writing, education. We oriented toward people actually working with real clients in the real world, but many people go off and do product development. I mean, just so many things that can spin off from this.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so specific to our program, as you now well know, this is taught by KP Khalsa, and again, years, half a century of expertise in the field. So with that focus of Ayurveda, Chinese, and Western herbs, throughout the course of the full 9-month program, you will be exposed to and learn a lot about more than 200 different herbs within those traditions. KP covers some of that traditional wisdom and understanding, as well as that science-based approach, so that you really can start connecting it to different worlds and avenues and be able to speak to the benefits and rationale for using some of these in different areas. And combined with the second year of the knowledge, this program prepares you for that American Herbalist Guild certification for the people that are interested in that. You can find out more about the requirements for that program or for that certification by visiting the American Herbalist Guild. But it's right now the primary, really only certification in herbalism that really brings some recognition and some standards of knowledge to a credentialing source. And again, that is quite portable, even though it does have that American in the title. It is something that that has value many places. So a little bit about the program details here. We are college-based, so we are term-based in our approach at PCC. So there's 4 terms in the year. This program does not run during the summer months, so those 3 terms are consistently the fall, winter, and spring, or 9 months to complete the program. It's possible to join anytime. We've had people start in the winter, complete the spring. Something's happened and like life has changed, or they're starting a family and they have to take a pause in the fall term, they can come back the following year and complete it. We track all of that for you so that anytime you have completed all 3 terms, you are able to earn that certificate and then advance on if you would like to do that. The certificate of completion does require completing all 3 terms, but if there are areas in a particular term that are of more interest to you, there's no commitment to continue on. Of course, most students find it most successful when they just really dive in and choose to do the 9 months in concert with each other, and even taking that summer off, but to kind of think of the school year as a commitment to go ahead there. KP shares so many incredible resources with you. Once you get in the course shell, you will find all kinds of information that he has made available for you to download. It's resources that he's put together over the years. And then he also shares his PowerPoint presentations with you so that you have access to all kinds of that information. And then, of course, the videos throughout the entire term are available for you to rewatch if you would like. It is delivered synchronously, so everything's real time, live there. And then with those recorded, you're also able to participate participate asynchronously. We have an opportunity for you to move on through KP's Institute to complete that year 2 program, and it's the same structure, the same fall, winter, spring, same tuition. So it's really just transferring, from our institution to his institution. So you'll be able to have a lot of continuity with that. We also really encourage people to form study groups. We've known some of those study groups to form close bonds and actually continue on in exploring some of those optional resources or checking in with each other regarding challenging clients or unique situations, and really staying connected for years. So that's an optional resource, and you'll learn more about that in the class and things, but many students have found that a valuable way to bring the material even more to a higher level of integration within their knowledge and application in their lives and work. We have an overview next of what is the main focus of each term. As you can read on the screen, the upcoming term will focus on the digestive system, cardiovascular system, and more of that integrative homeopathic approach to care. There is so much that's covered that we were just trying to find a succinct way to highlight the differences between each term. So rather than read them all to you, I'll let you take a glance at those. But throughout the course of the year, we really cover all of the major body systems from many of these perspectives, as well as different needs throughout the life cycle of most people, starting from very young through the senior years. So we also touch on cleansing and diet, vitamins and minerals, and all kinds of supplements that KP has vetted or has ways to help you identify companies that are the best sources for different things there. KP can share a little bit about more of what is covered in each of those terms relative to the different systems there.
Right. So we have 2 basic kinds of subject matter in each course. One is therapeutic units, and they're based on body systems. So what do you do for issues with, let's say, the cardiovascular system, 10 systems over the year. The other area is materia medica, where we learn about each herb individually, and that makes up most of what we talk about. Then a bunch of other ancillary units like formulating, where we talk about each term, preparations, plant chemistry. Those are all done each term for different perspectives. Herb history, for example. Right.
Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank Ivy, who referenced in the chat that she recently completed this program and highly recommends it. Very intimate discussion style classes in Zoom. I'm currently in the summer program and will be continuing in the fall with KP as well. We'll get to some of the other comments and questions in the chat in just a little bit here. Wanted just to kind of highlight the 2 main versions of investments that we have, our time and money. And the time investment follows the PCC term schedule. You can find that online easily by just typing PCC academic calendar if you want to be able to plan ahead, or email me and I can help point you in the right direction there. But that will let you know the beginning and the ending for those fall, winter, and spring terms, as well as include any registration requirements, like when it opens to start, and holidays where you might have a few days off, or those term breaks. In general terms, are 10 to 11 weeks long, and this program is actually, there's a typo on that slide there. This program is offered 1 day a week online, and it's always on Wednesdays. So we have it offered twice each Wednesday, and those times are Pacific times, from 2 to 4:45, or from 5:45 to 8:30 p.m. So we really designed this to try to address the needs from across the country, And again, we've had international participants, some who are able to adjust schedules to join us live, and others who need to participate in the recordings there. But those times have really, we found that they really help a lot of people be able to flex either during their workday or after work in the evening as well. Or if you can only attend part of one class and then need to pick up the other part in the next, you're welcome to do so, because the same material is covered in each of those sessions on Wednesdays. With the recordings, both versions of the courses that are being delivered will be available for you live, so you can pick and choose. Or some students like to participate live in one and then watch the other later just to reinforce and hear it phrased slightly differently. Again, we offer those synchronous or asynchronous options. There's the self-study and preparation. We follow that standard college formula and really recommend 1 to 3 hours of prep time for every hour of instructional time each week. You can really dive deeply. As I mentioned, there's all of those optional resources. And so if you happen to be on sabbatical right now or taking some time off and really want to focus and expand dramatically, then you can utilize that on the heavier end. Otherwise, there is some prep reading and other things that's recommended that you do, and that's more in that middle range there. Then there's the financial investment. The tuition is $999 per term, and then we have some books. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, the tuition there. The books, we don't require you to purchase these from a PCC bookstore or from any particular store. You are welcome. You may have a few on your shelves already. You're welcome to use those or to purchase them from whichever provider is your preference there. And you can buy those used, you can buy them new. Depending new or used, we find that they average around $50 to $200 in total for the full year. And then many of these books are used throughout they're used multiple terms there. So once you register, you'll get a detailed book list with all of the information for which terms things are used and such. So some next steps, of course, important next step is to register. We'd love to have you register. The fall program starts September 28th. Because we want to make sure that you have time to get into this system, receive your welcome letter. All of these are hand-based processes. Nothing's automated about that. So I need some time to be able to send that to you. And then you need to be able to set up your payment plan. That you can do yourself online without, that's fairly automated. But I really recommend and encourage anyone who's interested to register by September 20th, just so you have a little cushion to do that and be able to purchase your books and settle in so that you can really be ready to go and dive deeply. The tuition is $9.99 for the fall term. Typically, we also have a $10 technology fee, but we are able to waive that for the fall term. So that's really exciting incentive for everyone this year. $10 to $20 for that fee is typical. But basically to register, you use the course registration number or CRN number that you see on the screen there. And if you already have your PCC ID, then you can register easily online right now, or you can call, I'll put the phone number in the chat, to be able to register over the phone. Once you registered, you can pay for the class online or over the phone. If you do not already have your PCC ID number, then you need to go and enroll in the college. It can take a few days because they're doing some hand-based options to manual options there to be able to protect identities. So it can take 1 to 3 business days for someone to email you that ID number, and then you can go in and register. So I will send all of that information as part of a follow-up, and then I will also put the phone number for registration in the in the chat here. Okay, So I'm going to glance at some questions now, and then we had Mandy, if you wanted to still raise your hand there, I'm happy to, or anyone else who wants to raise their hand and ask their questions, happy to entertain those here. Let's see. So yes, the program will be on Zoom. Both sessions are live on Zoom. Nicole, I'm so glad you enjoyed this and got a lot out of that there. In the PCC Functional Nutrition Program, Chris is asking, it does include a module on herbal medicine. It's a much shorter version than what you could get in the year-long program here. So that is another place where we've had students complete both programs, because that's diving into so many of the systems and a lot of the research and nutritional assessment and all kinds of things to help people be successful in functional nutrition field. But then they're really only getting a cursory exposure to herbs, maybe about 25 herbs throughout that herbal module versus the 200 that KP covers here. And that program, due to the national standards for that, tends to also focus a little bit more on Western herbs, although the instructor for that is very knowledgeable in Ayurveda and other areas as well. So will the course continue online? We've already covered that one. Yes, it will be online. It's always been online, and we are committed to keeping it accessible and easy for everyone to access in that way. Thank you again to Ivy for her great recommendation for the program. I'm so thrilled. I love hearing all that students get out of this. For the price for each term, that is a per term price, so $999 for the fall term, and you can set that up as a payment plan. Many students opt for the 3-time payment plan throughout that term, and then each term you'll register, there'll be a new tuition charge, so you'll set up that payment plan for each subsequent term. Both times are live training, and yes, I will go find a link for you, Chanel. That's a great suggestion, link with the price and payment plan. So I will add that to our chat right now. While maybe KP, there is a question about severe adrenal pain and potentially causing pain in the kidney area. So I'm
Absolutely, that's possible. That would be pretty unusual, but it's possible. The adrenal glands are right on top of the kidneys, and so that area, the low back, if there were some severe problem with the adrenals. Now, severe adrenal fatigue, which is what Alice is asking about, probably not, but adrenal cancer, yes. Michelle is asking about what one remedy you'd suggest for someone to purchase for adrenal fatigue, rhodiola, which we discussed. I think the rest of these are procedural for you, Amy.
Great. Yes, I will look a little bit more at those, and I am putting to fall course. The link to the fall course is now in your chat menu there.